So Enlight's built two integrations with ServiceNow. One is the CMDB, the other to change management. As you can see in the diagram, they're both bi-directional. One of the things I like to call out is that these are productized integrations. They're a solution that you buy if you upgrade ServiceNow or you upgrade Enlight. Enlight's testing and updating the integrations to the new versions. It's not something we're doing as a implementation, one-off for a given customer. The reasons customers adopt the integrations are many. From a CMDB to Enlight perspective, there's first use cases is around reconciliation. There are people in the organization looking at the CMDB. They're making decisions based on the data that's in there. Similarly, there's data center folks looking at the data in Enlight, making decisions as well, and having those systems match on a weekly basis to make sure the assets are reconciled. Does what is in the CMDB match what's in Enlight? Brings tremendous value with it. There are tools like discovery, asset management, change, feeding the CMDB. Enlight's also managing change in the data center. In being able to reconcile those two is of tremendous benefit. What customers find quite often is equipment that shouldn't be in the data center. It may be equipment that just doesn't belong. It's a security gap or threat. It's old equipment that was decommissioned but never removed, or equipment that was deployed for a project and the project has since been canceled. So zombie, ghost, whatever you want to refer to them as, equipment that's residing in the data center and can be eliminated, freeing up assets, resources, power, cooling, giving tremendous benefit back to the organization. Shortly after getting the reconciliation going, there's other next step is common, eliminating duplicate data entry. So being able to identify who's the record, master record for items such as location. That'll typically be the Enlight, the DSIM system. So being able to feed that location data to the CMDB, and then people that subject matter experts that leverage CMDB day in, day out can also leverage that information. For other items like a serial number, if that's being discovered, that can go into CMDB and then go the other direction into Enlight, where you eliminate then obviously the duplication of data entry and the inefficiencies and the errors that are associated with that. From a change management perspective, customers use the bidirectional integration there to facilitate actions throughout the larger organization. So Enlight is great at understanding the details of requirements within the data center for elements like power, network connectivity, weight constraints, business affinity type of rules, and Enlight will coordinate the task between team members for doing activities like move adds changes or maintenance windows. But those actions often reside as part of a larger initiative. New equipment's being ordered as part of a project, and that's going to kick off some data center activities as well as some other activities, and that larger flow is be managed by ServiceNow. So ServiceNow could initiate a request to add equipment, for example, in Enlight, and at the appropriate time, Enlight can return status and notifications of progress back to ServiceNow. Other initiatives can be initiated from within Enlight. More common initiative that may be initiated within Enlight would be a maintenance window. This weekend we're going to take some systems down because we need to perform some work on a PDU. But before we do that, we need external approval from the folks that the cab folks that work in ServiceNow. So we can automatically open up that change ticket, wait for approval, update status, and close out the ticket, and do that seamlessly. So the subject matter experts can work in ServiceNow, other subject matter experts on the data center can work in Nlight, and they can seamlessly communicate between the two. So any comments or questions before we look at the demo and the mechanics of how we do the integration?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's very good, Steve. I think also it's worth noting everything that we're validating inside the CMDB within the physical world, so all of the records, there are other systems such as incident management, capacity management within inside the business, like Steve was saying about the change management reaching into the CMDB, really to pick up its assets to arrange for change, and that can also be done for application deployment. So really making sure that CMDB correct is very important for other systems that fit into the ITSM ecosystem. All right.
Yeah.
I think we're good, Steve, for the demo, man.
All right. Out of here. And we'll look at the CMDB integration. So what we're looking at here is what we refer to as asset sync framework. And this is a user interface where users manage their configurations. You can also kick off a reconciliation from here, or you could schedule that to run on a scheduled basis as part of a cron job. If we look at the configurations here in the lab, we currently have integrations enabled for HP as well as ServiceNow. As I said earlier, this is productized, and we also support BMC today for CMDB integration. We can see here in the general tab, first off, that we're using web services. So on both sides, the Nlight side and the ServiceNow side, we're communicating via web services. And then currently this integration is enabled, and I've configured it right now to do a partial sync. So we've already done the initial synchronization, and moving forward, we only want to recognize changes in the environment. In the location mapping, this is where we look at the definition of rooms or data center locations within Nlight and their corresponding names in ServiceNow. And then by checking this box, I'm deciding, do I or don't I want to communicate about a particular room. This is important because adoption of both technologies may proceed over different periods of time. You may have Nlight deployed and managing all the data centers, and then when you roll out ServiceNow, adopt different data centers over time. And as you adopt, you can simply check the boxes to add and reconcile against different locations. Common theme throughout here that you'll see is it's very easy for you to change the configuration. So the intent is, if your processes evolve or your adoption evolves over time, it's simple matter of going in here to the user interface, changing a configuration, and you're all set. You don't have to come back to Nlight to make that type of change. In the property mappings, these are the fields or attributes that we're going to communicate between Nlight and ServiceNow. There's the ServiceNow property, what it's labeled in ServiceNow. There's the Nlight property, and then the sync direction. The sync direction is always from the perspective of Nlight. So when we see something here set to outbound, that means we only want the asset tag information to go from Nlight to the CMDB. This allows me to define who's the master of the data. So if in the early discussion I said CMDB serial number could be discovered, and I'll go ahead here and say, okay, I want to communicate about the serial number. I'm going to make that inbound. Items like location, that's commonly going to be managed within the Nlight solution. So we'll go ahead and configure that as outbound. You can see here through the different selections that I make, I can determine who's the master and what elements are we going to communicate the next time we run the synchronization. There's also class mappings here. So like the properties which determine the fields or attributes we're going to discuss, the class mappings determine in Nlight terms the assets, and the ServiceNow terms the CIs that we're going to communicate back and forth about. Now it's very common when first deployed to want to talk about chassis, network devices, servers, IT type of equipment. I haven't run into a lot of customers that are storing air conditioning information in their CMDBs. This may evolve over time. And again, if at some point in time that was important to you, it simply may be a matter of going in here, enabling that, and then that would be an asset or CI that Nlight and ServiceNow would exchange data regarding. The other tabs here deal with defaults as well as alias, so we can handle a normalization of data. If there's a discrepancy between, Nlight refers to Hewlett-Packard by the initials HP, and ServiceNow considers that manufactured Hewlett-Packard. We can do all those translations through aliases. If there's records that don't match, we can define defaults for those. So the integration can handle that type of integration as well. Any questions before I run through a simple example of running the framework and seeing the two systems communicate?
No, I think that's very clear. I think the big thing to stress to the end user here is it is completely configurable on wherever they are on their maturity curve and wherever life begins in their organization for an asset. So if the life of the server, and we talk server, starts in CMDB, then it can quite happily be created in CMDB, the CI, and have the CI create and push the asset into Nlight, and then the rack and stack people, or the people can pick up that asset and then do their capacity planning or their layouts inside Nlight. It can be that flow. Or, like we have in some cases, it could be the other way around, where things begin in Nlight, they're created and pushed through, and they create the CIs inside the CMDB, and the flow goes that way around. So the framework, like Steve said, is a solid, out-of-the-box product that's maintained and everything else that enables you to decide the flow of information and the controlling of information purely through drop-down boxes and checklists.
Yep. There are some a little bit more esoteric use cases that you mentioned, Rob, where I may have Nlight deployed and I'm just adopting the CMDB. So the first time I run this, I'd like to use Nlight to populate the CMDB, or vice versa. So if I were, leveraging the Nlight data for first run population of elements in the CMDB, I could, configure all my data to go one direction outbound, but very easy to configure and update by the customers as their processes change. So what I'd like to do then is walk through a simple example of something changing in Nlight, and then how that would simply get translated over to the ServiceNow system. So we'll look at here a server record within Nlight, and there's a tag here which is 416, and we'll go ahead and say for whatever reason we need to assign a correct tag or a new tag number to that item. So changing that to be, instead of 416, 420, saving that record. Now I don't want to have to go to the ServiceNow system and reflect that. So as the synchronization runs, that will get moved over to the CMDB side. So here we'll go ahead and fire off the integration from the user interface. As I mentioned earlier, this can be run from a command line, so it can be scheduled to be run weekly, daily, whatever's appropriate. Technically, the restriction is this can't run more frequently than it can complete. But with partial syncs, the completion time can be very, very fast. We'll look then at the ServiceNow side. Here's our old record, that same asset name, the Blade server, and it had an asset tag of 416. If we refresh on that asset, we should see that updated to 420. All right, so let's click on the asset then again here, and we can see that that asset tag has been updated. So that's a very simple example, but of the power of the integration that we built. Any additional comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll move on and look at the change integration.
No, all good.
All right. So from a change perspective, as we discussed earlier, similar to the CMDB integration, we have a very flexible, easy to use integration that's been built. Changes could be managed and initiated from ServiceNow, or the opposite, from within Nlight. So I'll show both examples here of how that can work. So we'll go into ServiceNow, and under change, I'm going to open, well, actually in this case, we'll create a new ticket. And I'll go ahead and specify this hardware change. We'll give it a description called Nlight demo install equip for SH project and install equipment. Okay. So based on this, I'm going into ServiceNow, and I'm initiating a new change request, and this part of this flow will require the installation of new equipment associated with a particular project. So what this will do is reach out using the Nlight change management integration and go ahead and open up a workflow within Nlight that would then notify the data center folks that this work is underway, and that it needs to be completed. So back, looking at ServiceNow, that change request is open, and it's been assigned this number 30117. When I go to the Nlight system and do a search using the criteria of what's open, what's been open today, we see that new change request just showed up within Nlight. So as a member of the team that had to deal with this first task, I would get an email notification. Steve, you have to do a review of this new request that's coming in, or you have to plan more additional steps around it, whatever the appropriate first task is. But this workflow, as we see here, has been initiated from ServiceNow. Let's go look at the tasks. In this particular example, we can see that there's 5 steps, and currently it's asking me to review the request. So if we go in here and look at that, we can see additional information that came across. again, like the CMDB integration, this form, the data that's coming across, the fields that are mapped, that's defined via the mapping that was done between the ServiceNow system for this demo, and that's user configurable as well. So here we can do things like go ahead and do some planning actions on the Nlight side. And in this example, I'm going to add some equipment. This is a install request around the SH project. So I'm going to look for the equipment that's part of that project and start to build out the steps that would need to be completed, where to put the equipment, what connectivity to do, all of that type of information. So here I can see the servers I need to address. Go ahead and continue with that planning work, update information such as I expect our team to get to this beginning of next week and complete the activity the end of the week, and then status is we've accepted this, and this will be considered work in progress. So as I'm subject matter expert doing my work in Nlight, updating the appropriate information. In addition to this, request being initiated from ServiceNow, as I'm updating the tasks within Nlight, we're going ahead then and taking actions to keep the subject matter experts that work in ServiceNow up to date with what's going on. So we can see when I completed my work, there were some other actions that completed automatically, and that was updating the information back in ServiceNow. So here we can see some things that have been updated, like the state. This is work in progress. And then if we look further down in the field, the planned start and end date has been updated here as well. So coordinating, managing the work, initiating the work is all seamlessly done, and the subject matter experts, the domain experts, can do their jobs and understand the progress that's being made, but still work in their respective systems. The additional steps there would go ahead, complete work, close out the ticket. I won't continue that unless that's of interest, but we can look at another example where change was initiated from within Nlight next. Any questions or comments on that capability?
No, I think that's very clear. I mean, the real power of this, like Steve was saying, is it really does push the ServiceNow change request. So you can have all your ITIL processes inside your change request documented out in your tasks, but then pushes the action activity. So the doing the work, the cabling, the physically installed, the actual physical doing tasks now get pushed through automatically into Nlight to start the workflow. People do all the doing tasks. They can be updating the change request as they're doing the work. And then when they've completed the work, they can send back automatically that we're completed, that can close the change or at least hit a milestone or a stage point inside that change request. So back over to yourself, Steve.
Yep. So the flip side of that would be there could be changes which are identified and need to be initiated from the SIM solution. As we said earlier, that could be a maintenance window where I need to take PD down for maintenance purposes, but before I do, I need to notify people, get external approval before proceeding. So this example will look at the inverse of what we just saw, which is leveraging Nlight's workflow engine to open a ticket, and then the interaction would be similar to what we saw regardless of whether the ticket's open from Nlight or ServiceNow. The two systems can communicate back and forth, update status, that type of thing. So here I'm going to pick a process from one of the processes that I'm authorized to initiate from within Nlight. and we'll call this the SH request A5, and here you can see there's some mandatory fields. So in this case, we're doing maintenance action. It's currently pending. Description would be some type of description. Category, I'll pick software update, firmware update for this action, and we'll say this is priorities of medium prioritization, and then we're going to do the work over the weekend, and should take 1 hour type of thing. So I'll go ahead then and start this within Nlight, and the first step is we're going to create the CRQ automatically in the change management system. Let's update the request. So that first step has been completed. Within Nlight, we're now on the second task, and if we were to pull up this information here, we can now see information that's been returned from ServiceNow. The change ID, unique identifier, and we can go into ServiceNow, look at our list of change requests. There's that one that's open, but it was created, initiated from within Nlight. And then I could, go ahead and make changes here. Okay, I've looked at the request. I understand what's going to be done, and I'm okay with that. So I'm going to move this from pending to an open status and update the ticket here on the ServiceNow side. Now on the Nlight side, we'll go ahead and with our planning, and we'll look at the request as it's moving through the different stages. And here we can now review this task, and we can see more information. So we can see that the state has changed from pending to open, so that tells us that we can go ahead and perform this work the following weekend. We received approval to do that within ServiceNow. This workflow goes through a couple of additional steps where I can go ahead then and I could, from within Nlight, mark this as closed complete when the work has been done, and we can see that then updated within ServiceNow, so we can do that closed integration, actually close out the open tickets, not leave open work orders outstanding, and manage that seamlessly through the integration capabilities that we've built. So this has moved beyond updating the status within ServiceNow. From an Nlight perspective, there's one more review, but from a ServiceNow perspective, if we went and looked at this record, we see that the state is closed, it's complete, and that can then be removed from the queue. So another, very good example of how the two systems can integrate. Subject matter experts can be kept abreast of what's going on, but they don't need to leave their environment to get information. We can eliminate what I recently heard referred to as a swivel integration, relieve the need to go to two systems. One to mark something as done, and then go to another system to close out the tickets. People no longer have to deal with open tickets that are just sitting there because somebody forgot to mark them as complete. So that's what I planned as far as the demonstration of the integrations. Anything else you'd like to see or discuss?
I think that was perfect. The only bit I'd add on this one as well, The ability to support Nlight starting a change request from the Nlight system workflow enables a business to really build workflows inside Nlight to deal with some of the tasks, like maintenance tasks within the data center, such as maybe PDU maintenance, air conditioning maintenance, or whatever. Have the tasks where you're getting the engineers identifying the equipment, working out the schedules and everything else. And then at some point within that process, having a task go out to raise change to notify IT of anything that might be affected on their side. So it really does enable you to communicate and get a complete end-to-end of all the activities, people involved, the history of everything, from the change through to the workflow, through to the who, when, and what, on everything that's happening inside that data center in a processed fashion. All right.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Nice job, Steve. Really good, man.